Hokum metni eis zangenletterdem detailanderd v kelim sazen ukar ektum. Vikingleren tacticlari, Hastings Saven Arkandaki Askari Deheler, Tudor Hanadan Sare and Tricolor v Sinai Deverminen Karank YZGB Detailer Eklierek Metni Tam and Lamela 9 Dakikak. Arkas Arkazna Akan Dev Bur Belgasel Senariasuna DNT Ardem Yin Sanieler v Kurgun Notler Olmadan. Direct Copiolape Seslan Dermi Diendrabalisan Genelatilmi Nihai Menin Burata. The blood of Britain, the ultimate Sagawat. If the England you know today was actually built by the most brutal raiders in human history, today we think of England as the land of kings, queens, and global empires. But 1,200 years ago, this small island was nothing but a bloody battlefield. It was divided, weak, and on the verge of total destruction. Until the longships arrived from the north, they didn't just come to rob and leave. They came to conquer, settle, and breed. This is the untold story of how Viking blood, French steel, and endless wars literally reshaped the language, the laws, and the DNA of England. If you are ready to break the historical matrix, hit the like button, subscribe. And let's dive into the Dark Ages. The year is 793. The place is Lindisfarne, a peaceful holy island on the northeast coast of Britain. Christian monks are praying in total silence. They feel safe. They believe the ocean protects them. They were wrong. Out of nowhere, terrifying ships with dragon heads pierce through the fog. Men with massive axes and foreign gods storm the beaches. In just a few hours, the holy monastery is painted in blood. The monks are slaughtered without mercy, the gold is stolen, and the survivors are dragged away in chains. This wasn't just a raid. It was a psychological shockwave that shattered the Anglo-Saxon world. For decades, the Vikings used hit-and-run tactics. They targeted vulnerable coastal monasteries, stole immense wealth, and vanished back into the North Sea before any army could respond. But in 865, their entire strategy changed. They didn't send a few ships anymore. They sent a massive, unified invasion force known as the Great Heathen Army. Thousands of hardened warriors, led by the legendary and ruthless sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, landed on the English shores with a single goal: total colonization. One by one, the great English kingdoms collapsed under their terrifying military might. Northumbria fell, and its king was brutally sacrificed. East Anglia was crushed, its armies annihilated, and its rulers executed. Mercia was completely destroyed and replaced by puppet rulers. The Viking army established a massive territory called the Danelaw, a land ruled entirely by Norse laws, customs, and warlords, stretching across half of modern-day England. Only one small, swampy kingdom stood between the Vikings and total control of the entire island: Wessex. Enter Alfred, a young, sickly king who took the throne of Wessex when all hope was lost. Driven into hiding in the muddy swamps of Athelney, Alfred had a critical choice: surrender to the pagan invaders and watch the English identity vanish, or fight for the very soul of Britain. He chose to fight. Alfred used guerrilla warfare, gathered the broken pieces of his army, built a massive, unbreakable shield wall, and broke the Viking war machine at the historic Battle of Edington in 878. Alfred saved the English identity, forced the Vikings to accept peace, and laid the first brick of what would become a united kingdom of England. Today, words like sky, knife, take, die, and window are completely Viking words. The blood of Britain is, and always will be, partially Viking. But the island's greatest test was yet to come. Welcome to 1066, the most explosive, chaotic, and bloody year in European history. King Harold Godwinson had just marched his army north and destroyed the last true Viking king, Harald Hardrada, at Stamford Bridge. It was a glorious victory, but it came at a terrible cost. While his soldiers were celebrating and bleeding in the north, another terrifying nightmare landed on the southern shores: William, the Duke of Normandy. King Harold had to force his exhausted men to march hundreds of miles back down south without rest. On October 14, 1066, near the town of Hastings, the Anglo-Saxon and French-Norman worlds collided in a brutal clash of steel. For hours, the English shield wall held strong against fierce cavalry charges and rainfalls of heavy spears. But William used a brilliant tactic, pretending to retreat to lure the English out of their defensive positions. As the shield wall broke, William ordered his expert archers to shoot high into the sky. Legend says a stray arrow pierced King Harold straight through his eye. The English king fell dead, and his army broke in terror. William the Conqueror took the crown, French became the language of the royal court, and modern Britain was born out of French steel and noble blood. You think Game of Thrones is pure fiction? Think again. The Starks and the Lannisters were inspired by real families. They were called the Yorks and the Lancasters. And their ruthless, multi-generational civil war for the English throne tore the nation apart for over 30 years. This was the Wars of the Roses. It was an era of a mad king, a ruthless queen, and innocent young princes murdered in cold blood inside the dark, stone walls of the Tower of London to secure power. The absolute cruelty reached its bloody peak until the Battle of Bosworth Field, where the tyrant King Richard III was surrounded, betrayed by his own allies, and hacked to death in the thick mud. His golden crown was literally found hanging under a thorn bush and placed directly on the head of Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor united the two bleeding houses and created the infamous Tudor dynasty. This powerful house would later produce Henry VI, the absolute epitome of a ruthless, tyrannical king. Driven by an obsession to get a male heir, Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church, defied the Pope, created his own religion, destroyed ancient monasteries, and executed two of his own wives on false charges of treason. England had survived the horrific civil war, but the absolute, unchallenged power of the monarchy was about to expand far across the oceans to rewrite global history. How did a tiny, rainy island on the edge of Europe manage to conquer 24% of the entire planet? It began with absolute naval dominance. In 1588, England destroyed the invincible Spanish Armada against all odds, becoming the undisputed master of the oceans. The British realized a simple truth: if you controlled the seas, you controlled global trade, and if you controlled trade, you controlled the wealth of the world. By the 19th century, under the massive empire of Queen Victoria, the Industrial Revolution transformed Britain into the economic workshop of the world. Steam power, massive iron factories, coal mines, and a brutal, highly organized colonial machine turned this small island into the largest empire in human history. From the vast spice fields of India to the rich gold and diamond mines of Africa, the British Empire controlled the lives, resources, and destinies of over 400 million people. It was an empire so vast that the sun literally never set on its global territory. But every empire has an expiration date. In 1945, Britain stood proudly on the winning side of World War II. They had successfully stopped Nazi Germany under the fierce leadership of Winston Churchill. But that glorious victory was actually an economic suicide. London was completely bankrupt, broken, and buried under rubble from months of German bombing. The nation was drowning in massive war debt. Within just a few decades, the empire rapidly dissolved as nations like India and countries across Africa and Asia fought for and won their independence. The greatest empire in history collapsed under its own weight, leaving behind a small island that must now live in the shadow of its own monumental past. From the brutal axes of the Vikings to the birth of a global empire, the story of Britain is written in blood, iron, and fire. It is a story of constant invasion, survival, and reinvention. Prove you are human. Are you a real human history enthusiast who watched this epic saga till the very end? Or are you just a deadbot scrolling through the internet matrix? Prove your existence right now. Leave a comment below with the word history, hit that like button, and subscribe to help us break the algorithm. Thank you for watching Real Human. Stay free.